All right, Swope here, showing you some situations that you can use Desmos on your EOC test. This first case we have is select all the expressions that are equivalent, or if they ask you which expressions are the same or equal, if they're basically giving you some kind of expression in a list of choices, whether it's multiple choice, or in this case, we're actually going to pick more than one. How you want to do this question. I mean, if you know how to figure out which one of these are the same, I mean, go for it. But we can use Desmos to help us. So to get Desmos on your EOC, you're going to click this calculator button. Um, there it comes up. You can move this around. You can make this full screen, but I would like to kind of keep this all up at once if possible. But you're going to type in your original equation. In this question, we actually have something interesting come up. You notice it didn't graph my expression. I recommend you always look at this exclamation mark. This means there's some kind of error, and sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it'll basically just say you can't do that. This one, it says try adding an equal sign to turn this into an equation. So that's actually kind of helpful. We're just going to put an equals and just do it the same for everyone. But I'm just going to do equals 0. If it says add an equal sign, make it equal to 0. But this will only happen if you have two variables. If you are looking at this practice test, for example, number 13, you won't have this issue. Like if it's just X's, it'll graph those. You won't have to put an equal 0. But like I said, always look at those error messages when they pop up. But we got our graph here. What we're going to do is graph these choices one at a time. Just be really careful when you type this in that it's exactly the same. Like make sure your powers are like where they're located. Like the second power of 2 is on the outside. We also have to put equals 0. And if you look, my blue graph does not overlap the entire red graph. It has to overlap the whole thing. So you might even want to like zoom out just to make sure it's covering the whole graph. So this first one is not a choice. So let's try the second one. So 3x squared, oops, make sure you're careful with your cursor, minus y squared equals 0. Do you see it covers the whole graph? And like I said, I can zoom out, but my blue is covering that entire red graph that I started with. So that is an option I'm going to pick. All right, let's try the next one. 9. And just be careful. I'm pretty good at typing in math equations. So I know it will probably take you a little bit longer if you're doing this, but just be really careful. Double check. Did what you type look like this third choice? It does, but you see the green, it changes colors sometimes, but do you see my new green function overlaps the red function? That means that's also an answer. Because this question, if it's multiple choice, just pick one choice. But if you see these little like square boxes and it says select all, it can be more than one answer. So this next one, like I said, just make sure you move your cursor down, like when you're doing a power, make sure like it doesn't look really janky. But like I said, this one, like all these error messages tell me to try at an equal sign. So if you just make these equal 0, it'll graph. Just make sure you set them equal to the same thing. Like I could set it equal to 5 as long as I send them all equal to 5, but just do equal 0. But you see this purple one doesn't overlap, so that one doesn't work. Let's just do this last choice. 0, and you see that one also overlaps. So this one would have 3 answers. So like I said, especially when those error messages pop up, always check, because sometimes they actually give you a helpful hint, like if you actually type in something in Desmos, sometimes they'll even kind of give you like, oh, I just put an equal sign or put a parentheses or something. Sometimes will give you a helpful hint. Sometimes it'll say disabled, which means you can't do it. But keep in mind, you're not always going to have to do that. Like, for example, like look at this. This is number 13 if you're doing that online practice test. But like this one, since it just has X's, like it graphs. Like I don't have to put equal 0. I mean, I can. You see it. Oh, actually, it gets mad when it's one variable. So don't worry about putting an equal 0 unless you get that error message. But always, like I said, hover if you see that exclamation mark, hover it because it might even give you some insight. If it says it's disabled, you might have to kind of approach it with a different strategy. I'll show you in some of these future videos. But have a good day. Hopefully this was helpful.